Maya sat by the window of her small apartment, holding a cup of lukewarm tea that had lost its taste long before she took the first sip. Outside, the city moved fast, cars rushing, people hurrying, lights glowing, but inside her home, time felt heavy and slow. Her twin toddlers, Ayan and Ara, played with a few broken toys on the worn-out rug. Their giggles were soft and innocent, yet they carried a strange echo inside Maya's tired heart. Life had never been easy for her. Ever since her husband left years ago, Maya had been mother and father, provider and comforter, nurse and teacher all at once. She worked long hours at a small bakery, starting before sunrise and often returning after dark. Yet, no matter how hard she worked, her earnings were never enough. Rent, food, clothes, medicine, everything seemed bigger than what she had in her hands. She often reminded herself, "It's not about me anymore, it's about them." That thought gave her strength each morning when her alarm rang before dawn, even though her body begged her to stay in bed. The apartment told its own story. The paint on the walls had faded, the ceiling leaked whenever it rained, and the kitchen shelves carried only the basics: flour, lentils, rice, and sometimes a little fruit if she found them cheap at the market. But despite the cracks in the walls and the thin blankets, Maya tried to make the place feel like home. She would hum lullabies, tell stories, and draw little flowers on paper scraps just to see her children smile. Ayan and Ara were only 3 years old, yet they understood more than most children their age. They watched their mother carefully, noticing when she rubbed her temples after a long day or when her eyes looked red from holding back tears. Sometimes, Ara would climb into her lap and press a tiny hand against her mother's cheek. Sometimes, Ayan would hand her his toy car as if to say, "Don't worry, Mama, you can play too." But even love couldn't erase exhaustion. That evening, Maya had returned from work later than usual. The bakery had been busy, and her boss had asked her to stay and clean after closing. Her back ached, her feet felt swollen, and her head pounded as if a drum was beating inside. She cooked a simple meal: rice and boiled vegetables, and watched her twins eat happily. Seeing their small hands hold spoons clumsily made her heart swell with both pride and sadness. Pride because they were hers. Sadness because she wished she could give them more. After dinner, she washed the dishes, cleaned the little kitchen, and folded the laundry. She tucked her children into bed, but they refused to sleep without a story. So, despite her heavy eyes, she sat between their small beds and told them about a butterfly who got lost but found its way back home with the help of kind stars in the sky. Ayan and Ara listened with wide eyes until their breaths grew slow and even. Maya kissed their foreheads gently and whispered, "Good night, my loves." She wanted to rest too, but her body would not listen. Her mind kept racing. How would she pay the rent due in 2 weeks? What if the bakery reduced her hours again? How would she buy warm clothes for winter? The questions piled up like bricks, pressing down on her chest. She stood by the window again, watching the faint glow of streetlights outside. The world seemed so far away, as if she lived on an island of struggle that no one could see. Her eyes burned, and before she knew it, tears rolled down her cheeks. She quickly wiped them away, whispering to herself, "No. I have to be strong." But strength has limits. Her body suddenly felt weak. Her vision blurred, the wall seemed to tilt, and her knees trembled. She tried to hold onto the chair for balance, but her hand slipped. The sound of the cup hitting the floor startled the silence of the night. Then, without warning, Maya collapsed on the cold floor of her apartment. The crash woke Ayan and Ara. Their tiny feet padded across the room as they found their mother lying still, her face pale. "Mama." Ara's voice trembled as she shook her mother's arm. "Mama, wake up," Ayan whispered, his eyes filling with tears. But Maya did not respond. The twins looked at each other, fear in their innocent eyes. They had seen their mother tired before, but never like this. They didn't know what was wrong, they only knew they needed help. "Ayan, remembering how he once saw his mother use the phone, grabbed it with his tiny hands. He pressed random buttons, his little fingers trembling. He thought he was calling the number his mother had taught him in case of emergencies. But in his panic, he pressed the wrong digits. And far away, in a grand mansion where life was completely different, a phone began to ring. Someone picked it up. And in that moment, two worlds, one of struggle, one of wealth, were about to collide in a way no one could have imagined. The phone rang in the quiet study of a large mansion on the other side of the city. Armin, a young millionaire who had built his empire through years of dedication and sleepless nights, looked up from his desk. It was late, almost midnight, and he wasn't expecting any calls. Most people in his circle sent emails or messages, rarely phone calls at such hours. He let it ring twice, debating whether to ignore it. But something about the sound, it felt urgent, almost desperate. Finally, he picked it up. "Hello." His voice was calm, deep, and a little tired. On the other end, silence. Then, a small shaky voice whispered, "Mama fell down." Armin frowned, confused. "Who is this?" There was no answer. Only the sound of tiny breaths and a soft sniffle. Then another small voice, this one a little braver, said, "Please help. Mama is not waking up." Armin sat up straighter in his leather chair. The child's tone was not playful, it was filled with fear. He pressed the phone closer. "Where is your mother? Can you tell me where you are?" But the children were too young to explain properly. Ayan, clutching the phone tightly, said only, "Mama on the floor." Mama not talking. Armin's chest tightened. He had never heard a call like this. It wasn't a wrong number to him anymore, it was a cry for help. "Listen to me," he said gently, lowering his voice so it would sound safe to them. "Don't be scared. I will help you. Can you find any paper in your home? Or maybe tell me something you see outside your window." Ara's voice came next, whispering through her tears. "Window is dark. We see light pole, and big shop downstairs, with red letters." Armin quickly opened his laptop, typing fast. A shop with red letters near a street lamp, it wasn't much to go on, but he was determined. He had resources others didn't. He called his driver immediately. "Get the car ready now," he ordered. Then, switching back to the phone, he spoke softly to the children again. "Don't cry. I'm coming to help. Stay near your mama, okay? Hold her hand." "Okay," the tiny voice agreed. Armin ended the call only after making sure they weren't alone in spirit. As he rushed out of his mansion, his heart raced in a way he had never known. He had signed million-dollar deals, spoken on stages, made decisions that changed companies, but nothing had made his chest feel so heavy as the sound of those trembling children. Inside the small apartment, Ayan and Ara clung to their mother's still form. The room was cold, and the silence felt scary. Ara tried to shake Maya's shoulder again. "Mama, please wake up," she whispered, but there was no response. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Ayan held the phone even after the call had ended, as if keeping it in his hand would keep the stranger's promise alive. "He said he will come," he told his sister in a shaky voice. "Someone is coming." The minutes passed slowly. Every creak in the old apartment made the twins flinch. They were too young to understand the world, yet tonight they faced a fear even adults struggled to handle. They only had hope that the man on the phone was real, and he would find them. Meanwhile, Armin's car sped through the city. The night outside was quiet, but his mind was storming. He couldn't stop replaying the children's voices in his head. Something about their innocence, their trust, had touched him deeply. He had grown up in comfort, never knowing what it was like to go hungry or feel unsafe. But he wasn't heartless, he knew that not everyone lived the way he did. "Faster," he told his driver, his voice sharp with urgency. Finally, after checking street after street, they found the area. The description matched a dim street, a flickering lamppost, and a shop with bold red letters. Armin's chest tightened. He stepped out of the car and hurried up the narrow staircase of an old building. The hallways smelled of damp wood, the walls cracked with age. He knocked on a door where faint light slipped through the gaps. At first, no one answered. Then, a small voice from inside asked, "Who?" "It's me," Armin said quickly, trying to sound gentle. "The man you spoke to on the phone. I'm here to help." The door creaked open slowly, revealing two little faces. Their eyes were red from crying, their cheeks wet with tears. Ayan still held the phone tightly, as if afraid to let go. "Please," Ara whispered, pointing to the floor. "Mama not waking up." Armin stepped inside, his heart twisting at the sight. Maya lay on the floor, her face pale, her body still. The room was small, almost bare, yet filled with the warmth of children's drawings taped on the wall. Without wasting a second, Armin knelt beside her. He checked her breathing. It was shallow but there. Relief washed over him. She was alive. "She's going to be okay," he told the children softly. "But we need to take her to a doctor right now." The twins nodded, their little hands clutching each other tightly. For the first time that night, they believed everything might be all right. Armin carefully lifted Maya into his arms. She was light, too light, as if life had worn her down more than it should. The children followed close behind, their small footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. And as they left the apartment, the night air felt different, like something had shifted. What had started as a wrong number was no longer a mistake. It was the beginning of a connection that would change all of their lives forever. The hospital lights were bright, almost too bright for Ayan and Ara's sleepy eyes. They clung tightly to each other, their small fingers interlocked as they walked behind Armin. He carried their mother in his arms with a sense of urgency, his expensive suit wrinkled, his polished shoes stained with dust from the old apartment stairs. But none of that mattered to him. Doctors and nurses rushed forward as soon as they saw him enter with Maya. "She collapsed at home," Armin explained quickly. "She was unconscious but breathing." They took her from his arms and placed her gently on a stretcher. The children's eyes widened with fear as their mother disappeared behind swinging white doors. Ara tugged at Armin's sleeve. "Where they take Mama?" Armin knelt so he could look into her eyes. "They are taking her to help her. Your mama will be okay," he said softly, though even he wasn't certain yet. The twins nodded, but their lips trembled. They were too young to understand hospitals, but they understood separation. Their world was their mother, and right now, she was gone from their sight. Armin guided them to a bench in the waiting area. He sat with them, not leaving their side. His mind replayed the image of Maya lying pale and weak on the floor. She looked fragile, as though life had been taking more from her than it gave. He had seen poverty before, but never this close, never in a way that shook him to the core. Time moved slowly in the waiting hall. The twins leaned against him, their tiny frames trembling with both cold and fear. Without thinking, Armin removed his coat and wrapped it around them. Ayan looked up at him with wide eyes. You will stay, right?" The question pierced Armin's heart. He was a stranger, someone they had never met until tonight, yet they clung to him as if he was their only anchor. He placed a reassuring hand on Ayan's shoulder. "Yes. I will stay until your mama wakes up." Hours passed before the doctor finally came out. His voice was calm but firm. "She collapsed because of exhaustion and weakness. She hasn't been eating well, and her body is worn down. She needs rest, proper food, and less stress. We will keep her under observation tonight." Armin let out a long breath of relief. She was not in danger, at least not for now. He turned to the children and smiled gently. Your mama is safe. She just needs to rest. The twins sighed as if a heavy weight had lifted off their little hearts. Later that night, when the hospital quieted down, Armin was given permission to let the children see their mother. Inside the room, Maya lay on a bed, pale but breathing steadily. Her hair was messy, her hands weak, but her presence alone calmed her children. "Mama," Ara whispered, climbing onto the chair beside the bed. She held her mother's limp hand. "Wake up soon, please." Ayan stood beside her, clutching his toy car tightly. "We are here, Mama." Armin stayed near the door, watching silently. Something stirred inside him, a mix of emotions he couldn't fully explain. He had always lived in a world of contracts, profits, and numbers. But here, in this small hospital room, he was reminded of something far deeper: fragility, love, and survival. The night stretched long. The twins grew sleepy, their small heads resting against the side of the bed. Armin quietly asked a nurse for 2 blankets and carefully covered them. They looked peaceful, even though the chairs were uncomfortable. He pulled another chair and sat nearby. He should have left. After all, these weren't his people, not his responsibility. Yet he couldn't. Something tied him to them, something beyond logic. As he sat there, memories of his own childhood returned. He had grown up with every luxury: private schools, chauffeurs, vacations abroad. But what he lacked was warmth. His parents had been too busy, always chasing bigger goals. He had often sat in giant rooms filled with expensive things, but without laughter or comfort. And now, looking at the twins, he realized that even in their poverty, they had something he once longed for: pure love, even if fragile. The sound of a faint groan pulled him back. Maya stirred, her eyelids fluttering weakly. Slowly, she opened her eyes. At first, everything was blurry. She saw the white walls, the ceiling lights, and then her children curled up asleep beside her. Relief softened her tired eyes. Then, her gaze shifted to the man sitting near the door. For a moment, she was confused. His expensive clothes, his sharp presence, it didn't fit with her world. Who are you?" she whispered, her voice hoarse. Armin stood and stepped closer, but his tone remained gentle. "Don't worry. I'm just someone who answered when your children called. They were scared, so I brought you here." Maya's brows furrowed slightly as she tried to recall. She remembered her weakness, the fall, and then darkness. She looked at her children again, asleep but safe. A mixture of gratitude and unease washed over her. Gratitude because the stranger had helped. Unease because she didn't know why. You stayed?" she asked softly. "Yes," Armin replied simply. "I stayed because they needed someone. And maybe, you did too." Maya closed her eyes again, tears slipping out despite her effort to hold them back. For years, she had carried her burdens alone, never expecting anyone to help. Yet tonight, a wrong number had brought a stranger into her life, someone who seemed too far from her world, yet had sat quietly by her side when she needed it most. And deep inside, though she didn't admit it, a tiny part of her felt a flicker of hope. Morning sunlight slipped quietly through the thin curtains of the hospital room. The soft golden glow touched Maya's face, waking her gently from a restless sleep. She blinked, trying to gather her thoughts. For a moment, she thought she was still in her apartment, but the crisp white walls and the steady beeping of a monitor reminded her she wasn't home. Her eyes drifted to the side, where her twins were curled up together on the couch, still wrapped in a warm coat that clearly didn't belong to them. She touched the fabric and realized it was fine quality, something expensive. Her gaze shifted further, and she saw him. Armin sat on a chair near the window, his posture calm but his eyes heavy from a night without rest. He had stayed. The thought surprised her. Strangers didn't stay, not in her world. For a few minutes, Maya simply watched. She tried to understand why a man like him dressed in clothes she could never afford, with a presence that didn't belong in small hospital rooms, would give his time to her children, to her. Just then, Armin noticed her awake. He stood and stepped closer. "How are you feeling?" His tone was calm, but there was a quiet concern in his eyes. Maya hesitated before answering. I feel weak. But better than last night." Her voice was soft, almost guarded. Armin nodded. "The doctor said you collapsed because of exhaustion. You need proper rest and food." He paused, then added gently, "You've been carrying too much alone, haven't you?" Her chest tightened at his words. She didn't like showing weakness, especially in front of strangers. For years, she had told herself to be strong, to manage without anyone's help. Admitting the truth felt dangerous, as though it would make her walls crumble. She looked away. "Life is not easy. But I manage." Armin studied her for a moment. He could see the pride in her eyes, the quiet strength that came from years of surviving without support. But he also saw the cracks, the exhaustion, the loneliness, the weight she tried to hide. Before he could respond, Ayan stirred on the couch. His small eyes blinked open, and when he saw his mother awake, he rushed to her side. "Mama! You're okay." His voice was full of relief as he climbed onto the bed. Ara followed quickly, hugging her mother tightly. Maya smiled, holding them close despite her weakness. "Yes, my loves. I'm okay now." The room filled with warmth as the children clung to her. Armin quietly stepped back, giving them space. But even as he stood near the window, his presence felt steady, like a silent guard watching over them. After some time, when the children settled, Maya looked at him again. "I don't even know your name," she said softly. "Armin," he replied simply. "And you?" "Maya." He nodded. "Maya, you're strong. I can see that. But strength doesn't mean you should suffer alone." Her eyes softened, though her voice stayed careful. "Why are you helping us? You don't even know us. We're nothing like your world." Armin paused, his gaze drifting toward the twins who were now playing quietly with each other. "Maybe because I was meant to answer that call," he said after a moment. "I don't know why. But when I heard their voices, I couldn't turn away." Maya lowered her eyes. A part of her wanted to believe him, to trust that kindness still existed. But another part reminded her that life rarely gave without taking something in return. The day moved slowly. Nurses came and went, checking her health. Armin ordered food for the children, making sure they ate properly. He even brought them small coloring books from the hospital shop, which made their faces brighten. Maya watched in silence, her heart conflicted. Later, when the children dozed off again, she finally spoke. "I don't want to be a burden. You've already done enough." Armin shook his head gently. "You're not a burden. Your children reached out to me, and now I feel responsible. I can't just walk away knowing what I know." Her throat tightened. She wanted to argue, to protect her pride, but the sincerity in his voice stopped her. He wasn't pitying her, he was simply present, steady, unshaken. The silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable but heavy with unspoken thoughts. Finally, Maya whispered, "Thank you." It was just 2 words, but for her, it felt like opening a door she had kept locked for years. Armin smiled faintly, not in triumph but in quiet understanding. "You don't need to thank me. Just get well. That's all that matters right now." As evening approached, the doctor confirmed that Maya could be discharged the next day if she rested well. Relief washed over her, but worry followed quickly. Returning home meant returning to the same struggles. She glanced at her children and then at Armin. She didn't say it, but she wondered, would he still be there after today, or would he disappear back into his world of wealth, leaving this night as nothing more than a passing moment? Armin, noticing her unspoken worry, thought the same in reverse. He didn't understand why he felt so connected to this small family, but he knew one thing clearly: walking away didn't feel right anymore. And as night fell again, two very different lives stood quietly side by side, uncertain of tomorrow but bound together by one unexpected phone call. The next morning, the hospital room was filled with quiet sunlight and the faint sound of birds outside the window. Maya sat up slowly on the bed, still weak but determined to return home. She did not like hospitals, they made her feel small, powerless. She wanted to be with her children in the comfort of their little apartment, even if it was old and broken. At least there, everything was familiar. The twins, full of energy again, ran around the room with laughter that made the nurses smile. Ayan pushed his toy car across the floor, while Ara showed everyone the little flowers she had drawn in the coloring book Armin had given her. Their joy was simple, pure, and it softened Maya's heart, reminding her of what really mattered. But when she turned her eyes toward Armin, who stood near the door talking quietly to a nurse, her heart grew restless. He looked so different from her world: his polished shoes, his crisp shirt, his calm confidence. Why had someone like him stepped into her life? And how long would he stay? Soon after, the doctor came with papers. "She can go home today," he said. "But only if she promises to rest. No long hours of work for now. Food, rest, and care are important." Maya nodded quickly. "Yes, I promise." The doctor gave a warning glance, as if he knew promises were easier to speak than keep. When everything was done, Armin offered to drive them back. His car was waiting outside, sleek and shining, a vehicle that turned heads on the street. Maya froze when she saw it. The twins gasped in wonder. "Wow! Mama, look!" Ayan shouted, tugging at her hand. Ara pressed her nose to the window. "It's so big." Maya hesitated. She had never sat in such a car. For a moment, she wanted to refuse, to say she could take the bus like always. But her children's excitement was undeniable, and her body was too weak to argue. Quietly, she agreed. The ride back was silent at first. The twins chatted happily in the back seat, but Maya sat stiffly beside Armin, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Finally, she spoke. "You have done more than enough. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me," Armin replied, his eyes fixed on the road. "But I do," she insisted softly. "My children, they could have lost me. If you hadn't answered that call." Her voice broke for a moment. She quickly swallowed the tears, unwilling to cry in front of him. "I can never repay this." Armin glanced at her. "I didn't do this for repayment. I did it because it was the right thing to do." Maya's heart tightened. She wanted to believe him, but her pride rose up like a shield. People don't help without reason. There's always something they want in return. Her words were not sharp, but they carried years of disappointment, years of surviving alone without anyone offering true kindness. Armin's jaw tightened, not in anger but in hurt. He understood her mistrust. Life had clearly taught her to expect little from others. Still, he answered calmly, "Maybe I'm different. I don't want anything. I just couldn't ignore the voices of your children. That's all." Silence filled the car again. The city passed by: outside shops opening, children walking to school, workers rushing to jobs. But inside, two people from different worlds sat side by side, struggling to understand each other. When they reached her building, Maya's unease grew. She didn't want him to see her life too closely: the cracked walls, the broken furniture, the reality of her poverty. She opened the door quickly. "Thank you for bringing us home," she said, her tone final. "We'll be all right now." Armin stepped out too, ignoring her attempt to end things. He helped the twins out of the car, his large hands steadying their small frames. They smiled up at him with innocent trust, already seeing him as more than just a stranger. "Mama, can he come inside?" Ara asked eagerly. Maya froze. "No, sweetheart. He has important work. We shouldn't bother him." But before Armin could reply, Ayan tugged at his hand. "Please come, just for a little. Mama made our home pretty with drawings. You will like it." Maya's face flushed. She felt torn between pride that her children loved their little home and shame that it was so poor compared to the world Armin came from. Armin looked at her, not at the apartment. His eyes were calm, steady. "Only if your mother says yes." For a long moment, Maya hesitated. Finally, she sighed. "Just for a few minutes," she whispered, her pride bending under her children's eager faces. Inside, the apartment looked as humble as ever. The cracked walls, the faded curtains, the old wooden chairs, it was far from the life Armin knew. But what caught his eyes were the drawings taped neatly across the walls, the little flowers cut from paper, and the clean, careful way Maya had tried to make it a home despite having so little. "It's beautiful," he said honestly. Maya blinked, surprised. "Beautiful? This?" "Yes," he said firmly. "Because it's full of love." Her heart skipped a beat at his words. For the first time, she saw no pity in his eyes, only respect. Still, her pride whispered inside her, reminding her not to grow too close, not to trust too quickly. Gratitude warmed her heart, but fear of being let down kept her guard high. And as Armin finally left that evening, Maya stood by the window, watching the car disappear into the distance. Her children waved happily, but she whispered quietly to herself, "He doesn't belong to our world. I cannot forget that." Yet deep down, she knew their worlds had already started to touch in ways neither of them could ignore. Days passed, and Maya slowly regained her strength. The small apartment, once a place of struggle and quiet despair, now felt lighter somehow. The children laughed more, played more, and even the sunlight seemed warmer. Yet Maya noticed something different too. Armin had not disappeared. He began visiting, not every day, but often enough to become a steady presence. At first, Maya kept her distance. She welcomed him politely but maintained her guard. She did not want to rely on anyone, no matter how kind. But the twins adored him. Ayan would run to the door the moment he arrived, calling his name, while Ara would climb onto his lap, showing him her drawings and stories with unrestrained excitement. Armin never tried to take control. He didn't offer solutions to every problem or lecture her about her struggles. Instead, he listened. He asked questions, learned their routines, and helped in small ways, buying groceries, fixing a leaking tap, bringing food when Maya was too tired to cook. Slowly, without realizing it, he became part of their daily life. One afternoon, Maya watched him kneel on the floor with the twins, helping Ayan build a tower of wooden blocks. Ara giggled as Armin carefully placed the final piece on top. The scene was ordinary, yet it struck her deeply. Here was a man from a world she had never touched, laughing and playing on the floor of her humble apartment. He had chosen to stay, not out of duty, not out of pity, but because he wanted to. "Look, Mama. It's taller than you," Ayan exclaimed, pointing to the tower. Maya smiled, her heart swelling. "It's very tall. Well done, both of you." Armin looked up at her and grinned. "It might even survive the twins' stormy hands," he said jokingly. Maya laughed softly. For the first time in a long while, her apartment felt alive in a new way. The walls didn't feel so cracked, the floor didn't feel so cold. Life felt possible, even bright. Over the following weeks, Armin's presence became a quiet support. He respected her pride, never doing anything to make her feel indebted. He didn't lavish them with expensive gifts or try to change their lives overnight. Instead, he helped in ways that mattered most, teaching the twins small lessons about kindness, helping Maya manage household tasks, and even listening when she spoke about her worries without judgment. One evening, after the twins were asleep, Maya and Armin sat together in the small kitchen. The sunlight had faded, leaving the room bathed in the soft glow of a single lamp. She stirred the pot of soup he had helped her prepare, her hands careful but slow. "You've done so much for us already," she said quietly. Armin shook his head. "It's nothing. I wanted to be here. For them. For you." Maya looked at him, noticing how different he was from everyone else she had ever known. Polite people often offered advice she didn't need. Rich people often assumed they knew better. But Armin simply stayed. He listened. He cared. And that, more than anything, left a mark on her heart. "Do you ever get tired?" she asked softly. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But when I see them happy, it doesn't matter. You've reminded me of something important, something I forgot growing up." Maya tilted her head. "And what's that?" "That wealth, money, it's nothing without love and care. I've spent years chasing numbers and deals, but seeing them laugh today reminded me what really matters." Maya's eyes softened. For so long, she had felt invisible, overlooked, and alone. But this stranger, this man from another world, had not only saved her life, he had also given her family hope. The twins, oblivious to the heavy conversation, ran past them laughing, their tiny footsteps echoing in the apartment. Ara shouted, "Armin, play with us." He smiled and followed them into the living room. Maya watched from the kitchen doorway, a quiet warmth spreading through her chest. Slowly, she realized that she had begun to trust him. Not completely, not yet, but enough to let him be part of their world. Days turned into weeks, and Armin became more than a visitor. He became a friend, a protector, and in some small way, a part of their little family. Maya noticed herself smiling more often, laughing more easily, and even allowing herself moments of rest she had long denied. One evening, as he helped tuck the twins into bed, Ayan whispered, "Armin, you can sleep here tonight." Armin chuckled. "I'll be nearby if you need me, but I think Mama needs her space too." Maya's heart lifted at his words. He understood balance. He could be there without taking over. She felt a quiet gratitude she could not yet fully express in words. As he stepped out into the cool night, Maya closed the door behind him and leaned against it. Her heart felt lighter than it had in years. She knew life would still be hard, that struggles would not vanish overnight. But for the first time, she felt a small spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to face everything alone. And somewhere inside, she realized that this unexpected bond born from a wrong number, a frightened call, and an act of kindness had begun to change not only her life but also the lives of her children, and perhaps even his. The morning sun filtered softly through the curtains, casting a warm glow across the small apartment. Maya stood by the window, watching her twins play with a set of building blocks they had received as a small gift from Armin the day before. Their laughter echoed, filling every corner of the room with light and life. For the first time in months, Maya felt calm, a sense of peace she had almost forgotten existed. Armin had come earlier that day, as usual, carrying groceries and helping to organize their small home. But today felt different. There was a quietness between them, an unspoken understanding that something important had shifted. The accident, the hospital, the late-night phone call, it had all led to this moment where their lives, once so separate, had slowly begun to blend. "Can you help me with this?" Ayan called from the floor, holding a block in his tiny hands. Armin smiled and knelt beside him. "Of course," he said, gently placing the block on the growing tower. Ara, who had been drawing pictures of flowers and butterflies, looked up and grinned. "Armin, you are the best builder." Maya watched them, her chest tightening with gratitude and emotion. These two little lives, so full of love and innocence, had found a safe place tonight, not just in her arms, but in a world where someone else cared enough to stay. And that someone was him. Armin glanced at her, noticing her quiet observation. "They are strong," he said softly. "Just like their mother." Maya shook her head, a small smile forming. "No, we've just learned to survive." "But you've taught us something too." "Me?" Armin raised an eyebrow. "Yes," Maya replied, her voice steady. "You've taught us that kindness exists. That there are people who help without asking for anything in return." Armin looked away for a moment, humbled. He had never expected to find such lessons in a small, worn apartment. His life of wealth and success had never shown him this side of the world, simple, human, and real. The day moved slowly. Armin helped Maya in the kitchen, packing meals and cleaning, while the children played nearby. For once, Maya did not feel the weight of the world pressing on her shoulders. She could laugh, smile, and breathe freely, if only for a moment. Later, when the twins were napping, she found herself sitting with Armin at the small dining table. The room was quiet, filled only with the soft ticking of a clock. Maya looked at him, her heart full of both pride and gratitude. "I want you to know," she began, "that I never expected this, any of it. I didn't think anyone would ever come into our lives like this. And yet, here you are." Armin leaned back slightly, resting his hand on the table. "I didn't plan to," he said quietly. "It just happened. But now that it has, I can't imagine leaving." Maya's eyes softened. She had spent so long protecting herself from disappointment that trusting anyone again felt dangerous. But she saw in his eyes something she had never seen before: honesty, patience, and a willingness to be part of their lives without taking control. "I'm still scared," she admitted. "Scared that this won't last, that life will go back to being hard and lonely." Armin reached across the table, placing a steady hand over hers. "It might be hard sometimes," he said. "Life doesn't change overnight. But we'll face it together. You and the twins, and me. We'll make it work, step by step." Maya swallowed hard, tears threatening to spill, but she didn't look away. For the first time in years, she felt hope, not as a distant dream, but as something real, something within reach. That evening, when the twins woke from their nap, they ran to Armin, their laughter ringing through the apartment. "Armin, play with us," Ara shouted. He laughed, picking them up in his arms. "All right, but only if Mama joins too," he teased. Maya smiled and nodded, feeling a warmth she had long forgotten. For the first time, their little apartment was not just a place of struggle, it was a home filled with laughter, care, and connection. As the sun set, painting the room with shades of orange and gold, Maya realized something profound. Life would never be perfect. Struggles would remain, bills would still be due, and challenges would not disappear. But she no longer felt alone. She had help, friendship, and love, not just for her children, but for herself as well. And as she watched Armin tuck the twins into bed that night, whispering small jokes and stories to make them laugh, Maya knew that their worlds had forever changed. A wrong number had brought a millionaire into their lives, but it had also brought something far more precious: hope, trust, and the promise of a new beginning. Maya closed her eyes, a small smile on her lips. Tomorrow would be another day of work, of struggles, of responsibilities. But tonight, she allowed herself to dream of a future where her children could grow safely, where kindness could be a part of their everyday, and where, sometimes, miracles arrived in unexpected ways. And in the quiet of the night, with the city lights glowing softly outside, their little family, no longer just Maya and the twins, but Maya, the twins, and Armin, felt whole, connected, and ready to face whatever came next.